Hey guys, welcome back to the Art and Business of Writing podcast. You're with Chris and Kayla right now, and today's topic we're going to be talking about top podcasts for enterprising and creative writers. I know that I've been listening to podcasts for, probably the last 2.5 years. How long have you been listening to podcasts, Kayla?
Probably about 3 or so. I think I started picking them up as I was starting to investigate the self-publishing options, and I wanted to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, do you remember the first podcast you ever downloaded?
Oh man, that's going to be a stress. Probably, or not a stress, a stretch. It's Joanna Penn's. It was something like that. I'm guessing the good chance of it was Joanna Penn's. She's on my list, but the Creative Pen. Yeah. She's like. What about you?
My first one was Entrepreneur on Fire.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I downloaded EO Fire. That was the first podcast I listened to. I listened to like daily, faithfully, because John Lee Dumas was podcasting every single day.
Yeah, he's got a lot of energy. He's good.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's crazy to think that podcasts have been around since like the early 2000s. Like I didn't even hear about them until like 2014. I don't think.
Probably, yeah. I mean, that would be right around in there for me too. So
yeah.
That's.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I've definitely finally made great source of inspiration, encouragement, and tons of just good information.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's easier to do that than sitting and reading on your computer all day.
It is. that's the truth. But also, it's kind of cool because it lets you go directly into the mind of the host. Especially if they're like a subject matter expert, then you can really. It's like, oh wow, I feel like I'm having a conversation with that person. They're actually teaching me directly.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's something to being able to hear their voice.
Yeah.
If you never heard them speak or heard someone speak, you don't really know what they sound like when you're reading just their blogs or whatever. I think it brings the information to life, being able to hear them speak it out loud.
Oh yeah. I'm a big fan of Darren Rouse. He does Pro Blogger. Have you ever read Pro Blogger? Blah, blah, blah. Have you ever read Pro Blogger? It's almost like a tongue twister. Pro Blogger.
Blogger. Yeah, he has kind of a deep voice, right?
Yeah, he has, but he's an Aussie, so he has the accent. So the first time I heard him, I was like, I totally forgot, and it threw me off when I first heard his podcast. He started last year. I'm like, oh, that's right, I forgot. Darren Rouse is from Australia.
Oh, maybe I'm thinking of someone else. I was thinking of someone. I've heard of Pro Blogger, and there was somebody else I thought was from Pro Blogger. How many times are we going to say this?
I know, the tongue twister.
No, maybe I haven't heard him. I have heard of Pro Blogger. I was thinking of somebody else that I thought was from there. He always just says, keep going at the end of his podcast.
And I can't Lewis Howes, maybe?
Maybe. And they were talking about the Rainmaker platform, and I don't know. I'll stop because I can't think of this, but I'm going to do it right now.
Yeah, so when do you typically like to listen to your podcast?
For me, it's usually while I'm doing chores around the house, so folding laundry, doing dishes, vacuuming, that kind of thing. Yeah, I've almost always when I'm doing that stuff. Occasionally, sometimes if I'm like getting ready for the day and doing my hair and stuff like that, I'll put it on. So just whenever I can't be working on actual writing and my hands are busy doing something else, then I figured I might as well be learning while I'm doing something else.
That's so true. I know I listen to them all the time, either when I'm out running or even in the car. I recently bought a car about a month or so ago, and I got used to driving my wife's car, and she has the automatic Bluetooth, so I would just hit the podcast and it would just pop up on the radio. I got a car that did not have that automatic Bluetooth, and I was losing my mind. I've got to buy an auxiliary cable like now and right now. I cannot drive my car and not have podcasts at the ready.
That would be cool. I always worry about running up my data, so I don't do it outside of the house really because I've got Wi-Fi at the house.
Yeah, no, I really enjoy this.
Just kind of an habit of my own.
All right, so you ready to dive into today's discussion?
Yes,
right.
I am.
So, Today we're going to really dive into, why listen to podcasts, why you should enjoy podcasts, and then really some of the great podcasts that are out there, whether they're for creativity, whether they are for fiction, and also for entrepreneurial podcasts. So let's dive right in. So Kayla, you're a fiction writer. Why don't you tell us some of the great fiction podcasts that you really enjoy and, what people can expect to get from those and why you like them?
Okay. So the majority of what I listen to is fiction podcasts, but my absolute favorite and the top of the list is The Creative Pen, which I mentioned a little bit ago. Joanna Penn is from England, and she has just a lovely voice to listen to, and she's bubbly and happy, and she actually does nonfiction and fiction writing. She's got two brands going, so it's kind of fun to get both sides of the writing world from her. And she will usually have guests on that she'll interview about either craft tips, what they're doing, everything from people who are doing dictation now for instead of actually typing, or how to structure a story, or just different tips like that. And then she also will have days where she's talking productivity, or she'll have marketing experts on there for fiction writers, and so you'll learn what's new in, for example, Facebook ads or something like that, and how to get the word out for your books. She's also super into technology and stuff, so a lot of times just started a new segment on there called her Futurist something or other, but she's just so excited about all the new technology out there, so it's really fun to hear what she's up to. And then I also enjoy the self-publishing podcast, which I do have to give everybody a little warning that is very explicit.
Dirty is it like Joe Rogan explicit?
Josh Rogan?
Joe Rogan. You ever listen to Joe Rogan? Joe Rogan drops F-bombs every other word almost.
Yes, pretty off-color jokes. They swear, they have potty minds. But they really know what they're doing, and they're actually a trio of three guys that have built a company, and they don't necessarily call themselves just authors anymore. They just want to be storytellers. And so they work together. They've got a whole staff now that they've grown, and it's fascinating to see how they do it. And so they have guests as well, and kind of like Joanna's, they will cover art, or the art of it and the business part of it. And I mean, I just die laughing every time I listen to them. But if you're easily offended or have children in the room, probably don't listen to them.
Or if you're easily amused and like to laugh.
I'm easily amused and hard to offend. So
I have one. Actually, I have one of their books. They published a book called Write, Rinse, Repeat. Write, publish, repeat. I'm thinking about shampoo.
Yes, I was like,
yes,
what it was.
Write, publish, repeat. I'm thinking about Selsun Blue or something. Right, publish, but it's awesome. And if you ever get that book, and I definitely recommend anyone jump into Amazon, download the book either on Amazon or Audible. But the narrator is hilarious. He's like this British guy.
Did Simon Whistler do the audio for them? I think it is Simon Whistler, who also has a great podcast called the Rocking Self-Publishing Podcast. And you will know, and he does a lot of audiobooks for people as well. And I think that's who did it. But yeah, I remember when they were writing that book a couple years ago and listening to their process of it, because they do fiction and nonfiction as well. In fact, they even now have their own writing conference that they started last year down in Austin that at some point I would love to go to. So, those guys, and they just, have a different view on things. And you'll kind of notice as you're listening to these ones that I'm telling you about, a lot of times they'll have, you can tell there's some artists that are just working the circuit a little bit, not in a bad way, but they're just moving through, and you'll hear them on several of these about the same pocket of time. The Sell More Books show is awesome. It's kind of like a news show for the self-publishing world. And so they'll give some tips at the beginning, and sometimes they have a lab segment where they'll have an author try something. And so they'll come in during a podcast, I'm going to try this, and then they'll come back a few weeks later and give the results of their experiment. And then they have the top five news stories in the self-publishing world for that week. And so and they're really great about being they're not alarmist, and everybody gets all up in arms about, oh my goodness, KDP has changed again, the sky.
No.
And so, they're just like, nope, it's just another change. So it's nice they can give you the information without their hair being on fire.
Yeah.
It's super awesome. So those are probably, I guess I gave you 4, even though I was headed for 3, but you mentioned Simon Whistler, so he was worth mentioning his as well. Do you listen to any of those that I just mentioned, or have you heard of them before?
I've heard of all of them except for Sell More Books.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I've heard of all of those, and then I've recently downloaded the self-publishing podcast.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Are we still friends after you listen to that?
I know. I was on there listening to it today, and they're like, we can't tell any more offensive Nazi jokes, and I'm like, oh god, these guys.
Oh yeah, that was the last episode. They went too far because they had a lady email them. She was just done. But yeah, that was pretty great.
That's the beauty of the medium, though, that you can kind of just be yourself and be self-expressive, and it's fun to learn when that kind of thing is going on. Like when people are having fun, you can always tell, oh, they're having a good time, and you get more out of it.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. And you can tell they're passionate about what they do, and they're not just doing it to make a buck, do whatever. So I think that makes a huge difference. Back to what we were talking about, people having their personalities in it and hearing their voices and stuff. So
I think that's the thing with podcasts, for each listener, you have to figure out who has your personality, because every podcast isn't going to work for your personality. No matter how good the podcast may be, it can be rated, 5 stars and have 800 reviews. It may not fit your personality or your brand of books or how you like to process.
Exactly. I've tuned into some that I thought were going to be fabulous and went, oh my gosh, this person makes me nuts. I can't do it.
Yes.
For everyone out there.
So what else you got in the bag?
Well, I marked general creativity. So this isn't just for fiction or nonfiction writers, but just for artists in general. But I'm a huge fan of Elizabeth Gilbert's book, Big Magic. Have you read that yet?
I have not, and you've told me about it a few times. I need to get it.
Well, I'm going to keep bugging you until you do read it. It's a fast read. But so in conjunction with that book, she started a podcast called Big Magic, and there's 2 seasons of it out now, where she kind of opens herself up for people to send her essays of what their creative block is right now, what's keeping them from following their creative dream. And then she gives them a magic lesson, which just kind of uses the principles of Big Magic of opening yourself to creativity and not trying to force things or trying to make them profitable. And it's just beautiful. And she's so gentle with these people. And then she'll also have a well-known artist on with her. Like she had Brene Brown with her on one episode to talk to the person. And the gal that wrote, I cannot think of her name, Wild, the woman that went hiking through the mountains, people like that. So she'll have, depending on the person's problem, might be an author or it might be a musician or somebody on with to help give this person advice. It's so, so cool. And I've re-listened to both episodes or both seasons just because they're cool.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I need to have some Eat, Pray, Love moments in my life.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
It apparently it's done wonders for her.
It has. I have mixed emotions on that particular book, but Big Magic is awesome.
Yeah, no, I love her TED Talks. She has some fantastic TED Talks too. Oh,
yes.
I mean, they really speak to your creative soul. So if you're listening and you want a fantastic TED Talk to listen to, go look up Elizabeth Gilbert. She does a TED Talk about creativity that will light you on fire.
So, Chris,
yes.
You are probably the entrepreneurial genius here. I put a couple of things on here, but you've got a whole bunch of things.
Yeah, I love the business side of writing. I love that 95% side of the marketing and the PR and the writing. So One of my favorite podcasts, and this falls in the category of sales. So if you're a person who is really struggling to break out of your shell and do the sales aspect, I recommend that you try the Cardone Zone. Again, like Kayla talked about with self-publishing podcasts, Grant Cardone is just raw. He's one of those explicit ones. So you got to make sure that if you're sensitive to language, you probably don't want to listen to him. He just comes right at you. But Grant Cardone totally pulls no punches. It's a very no-nonsense, sales-focused podcast. What Grant wants you to do is think about your business, think about your writing, think about your book as a business. So if you're writing a book, how many products can you break from that book? Can you turn the cover into poster art and sell posters? Can you turn, if you're a children's book author, can you turn the individual pages into prints that people may want? Can you make bookmarks out of it? So he gets you thinking about streams of revenue. He doesn't speak specifically to writers, but that's his mindset, is how many revenue points can you turn your product into? And so for an author, it makes you really think of, what else can I do with my book? If I'm writing a book that's a manual or a how-to, can I break those into separate books and sell them individually along with the complete book? So I love that Grant makes me think of ways to make more money off of individual products.
Oh, that's great. Joanna Penn is big on that too, on multiple streams of income.
Yeah, and I think it's, for writers, we have to learn to think that way because, no one knows we're out here a lot of the time. We write the book and we sit it out there and it's like, well, I need my book to move. But so thinking of different ways to get your book to move is something you want to do. And that's what Grant Cardone does. He has this really great concept called millionaire math, where you think about, well, how much do I want to make in book sales, and then just break it down. Well, how many do I have to sell to get there? So, yeah, definitely tune in. My second one, which is on the what I call entrepreneurial inspiration, is EO Fire, formerly called Entrepreneur on Fire. That's John Lee Dumas. It's a daily podcast where he interviews business people, and he really talks to them about kind of their walk of life in business, how they got started, what were some of their biggest struggles, failures, and then how they do what they do each and every day, like the passion behind the work, and then what advice do they have for people who are trying to grow their enterprises. So if you're looking for business inspiration, I definitely recommend EO Fire. You ever listen to EO Fire?
I have. I'm one of those people that I used to be really deep into all the business stuff, and then I kind of shorted out. It was like, ooh, I need to focus on writing another book, so I went ahead writer. But I did listen to EO Fire for a while, and I always enjoyed it. He's, like I said earlier, John Lee Dumas has a great energy, and he has some great guests and some great stories that these guests tell of how they got started. I love the getting started. Yeah. That's very inspiring.
It is, and I think, as writers, we're out here by ourselves a lot, and, hearing how other people have struggled helps. Because you always think you're the only one. You think you're the only one, like, oh, I'm having this writer's block, this is terrible, I can't get this book done. And you hear other people say, yeah, I felt like quitting on my business, and it wasn't doing well, and then voila, I had this great idea, and here we are. Now, my other one is business building, and that's Kate's Take, and Kate is John's other half. So Kate's is probably one of my top 2 podcasts that I listen to faithfully, because Kate's a systems and processes kind of girl, so she loves infrastructure, which is something that, if you're a freelancer or if you're an author, you're pretty much a sole proprietor. And so you've got to learn to put the infrastructure to your business. And so she gets into, basically how to create systems and processes that keep you effective, like how to manage paperwork, how to set schedules, how to theme out your day. A lot of really good advice for people who just need a little extra direction. So,
yep, I've heard her too. She has some good tips.
Yeah, and if you're a writer and you're trying to figure out where you belong still, you're not sure what you should be writing or how you should be writing, she has a really great series somewhere towards the beginning of her podcast. It's about 16 episodes. It's called The Fire Path, and basically she walks you through step by step and talks to you about how to find your niche. And
that's a great thing. I don't think I've heard that series on there. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, check out The Fire Path. And she has a companion book, so I've got the book too. And so you can listen to the book, while you're reading it, and it reinforces a lot of the concepts. So that's Kate's Take. Another one, if you're into social media or you need to get into social media, which all writers should definitely be engaged in at least one social channel. Take your pick, whichever one you find that your audience is going to be on. It's called Online Marketing Made Easy with Amy Porterfield. And Amy absolutely rocks when it comes to the digital world. She gets all things social. She understands how to monetize things, how to build courses around your product, how to create editorial schedules if you're a blogger, and then how to schedule social media. She talks about how to grow your audience through using Facebook groups and Facebook Live. So if you're someone who really wants to delve into the social media side and really build an audience through social media, it's a great podcast. Have you ever listened to Amy?
I feel like I've heard her on other people's podcasts.
Well, she's been on a lot of other people's, yes.
Because I can picture her voice and I can picture what she looks like. I also think I follow her on Twitter, but I have not listened to this. I'm going to start because I think she can probably help me a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, because she's all about engagement, which is what we need to do when we're writing books or we're writing anything. We need to engage our audience on a regular basis. Just stay in front of them, show them the behind the scenes, get them, and then building those communities. I think a lot of people are into that now, kind of building the tribe mentality. I know that Michael Hyatt's into that. Jeff Goins is into that. You've got Thrive Hive. So there are a lot of people into that, and she really gets into that whole side of building your tribe because she's an email list girl. So she believes that that's where all the money is, and I definitely agree with that. If you have a great, strong email list, you're going to have more readers, and the potential to make more money goes up.
Oh, I totally agree. And I guess that's a bonus tip for you guys. We'll just mention it there. Maybe we can talk about it on another episode a little more. But on all those fiction podcasts, they almost always end up going into email lists at some point because no matter what you're writing, it's really great to have that list at your fingertips that you don't have to jump through somebody else's hoop of social media to get to. You're just a direct pipeline to them.
Oh, yeah. Nothing like direct access to people.
Yep.
And then, of course, ProBlogger. And I got it right that time. No tongue twister. But ProBlogger is for people who want to publish content on a regular basis. So whether you're a blogger or you're an author who wants to write on a regular basis on your website, Darren Rouse has been doing it since 2005. I bought his first book, 30 Days to Better Blogging, and we'll put a link to that in the show notes. But he walks you step by step on how to build a very, very strong blog that people want to read and that people want to come to again and again for information. So definitely recommend ProBlogger. Darren has amazing tips for even what types of blog posts to write. That way you always stay fresh. And he always gets into making your blog a source of income. How do I get income out of the traffic that comes to my blog? So check out ProBlogger, and if you're partial to the Aussie accent, you'll love listening to Darren. If you're not, because sometimes some accents are harder than others to listen to.
Well, I'm gonna say I think the Aussie accent's probably kind of sexy, so I'm gonna have to go listen to him.
Well, you can also listen to
they won't get distracted.
Listen to the Founder podcast too. Nathan Chan is also Australian. That's a good podcast.
Noted.
And that's a good podcast too. I didn't list it, but the Founder podcast, because Nathan gets into he's a big Instagram guy, how to build followership on Instagram and get people on Instagram to buy from you. So Founder podcast, another good one. So how about your entrepreneurial side there, Kayla?
Well, I have Entree Leadership on the list. Have you ever listened to that one?
No.
So I don't know if you're familiar with Dave Ramsey.
Yes.
He's the get out of debt guy. So he began Entree Leadership, and he doesn't host it anymore. He has I'm going to forget his name now, but another guy, Ken Coleman, hosts it now and has very inspirational guests from people who lead in the military, authors, big business people. I mean, it's a very wide net of people they have on, but they're super inspiring, and the information that comes from their works for any industry, even if you're working by yourself and you don't have a team. It's just hearing how people are building things from the ground up and how, true grit and perseverance and having integrity will grow so far in your business. I would say that's kind of the big theme. And then also running a financially savvy business without debt and things so you don't get yourself in trouble. They have a lot of productivity tips, and it's just really a fun podcast. So I listen to that every week. And something else that I was just thinking about, there's another one I like to listen to called Glambition Radio. And this is the ladies. Allie Brown is the host of it. and she interviews people regularly, women. It's almost always women who have either running, multi-million dollar companies or are, running magazines. I mean, these are women who have made it big. And there's not always as many women as men doing these things. So she talks to them about, how are you having kids and running this company? And I just find that very empowering, which leads me to one more. Business Boutique is also another one for women. Christy Wright, she's also in the Dave Ramsey family tree. And she also talks about being a working mom and running a business and doing all the things that we have to do in addition to our work lives. And I don't know, I find it very empowering because I think women just have a different hoops to jump through to
I
have our
completely agree. I completely agree. I always wondering when I'm home with my kids, and my wife may be out and she's like, hey, can you watch the kids for a bit? And I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. So I'm sitting at the desk and they're running around and making noise and into this and into that. And I've got a little girl crawling on the ground towards the stairs. I'm like, how does she do this? How does she focus on anything? Because I'm a person, I work in zones, and if I get into a zone, nobody is in the house but me. The house could burn up around me, and I wouldn't even notice.
Yeah. Well, you've heard some of my tales. I mean, I do the PTA thing and be mom and run the house and the dogs and all the crazy stuff that takes over when you're trying to run your business. So it's kind of empowering and encouraging to listen to some women devoted podcasts. Not that guys can't listen to, they probably should, because it might give them some insight. Yeah, so those are two that I definitely think people should check out.
Yeah, and I've got another one too, the Portfolio Life, Jeff Goins. He has a great podcast, and Jeff is he's kind of a hero to me because I feel like he's me in a parallel universe, but he's a little bit further ahead. Because we come from the same background, did a lot of the same stuff. And then when he left his job, he said it took him like 18 months. And then he hit that 6-figure area where he's making lots of money, he's selling his books. He's a best-selling author. He's got the Tribe Writers Conference. So, whenever things get tough, I look to Jeff Goins. I'm like, yeah, that's the guy that I want to kind of follow in the shadow of. And so Jeff's podcast is called The Portfolio Life, and he just talks about how to have that good life, as a writer, and what you need to do to achieve your goals as a writer, and just it gives you all the tools and the tricks and the tips that he used, and it's a fantastic podcast.